Hey, I'm Joey Graham.
I'm Ronda Buhrmester.
Thank you guys so much for joining us live from the Prochant offices. And we are here with the Proof of Delivery podcast, Prochant's brand new podcast focused on HME revenue cycle management. Really excited to be here today with Ronda. We're going to be talking about some of the real challenges that are facing HME providers today. Changes in the HME industry, policy changes, payer changes, staffing challenges, and the proliferation of AI across our industry, which is one of the hottest topics out there. So we're going to take this first episode to just take the opportunity to talk about Medtrade. I think it was an excellent show this year. And I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, Ronda. She's our brand new VP of Client Experience. Really excited about that. We're going to share, what we heard on the exhibit floor, at the after hours events, in the sessions, and what does it mean for providers as they look at 26 and what's going on. So you're listening to Proof of Delivery. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's go ahead and kick off our first topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd say there were two overarching topics that just spanned Medtrade and just about everything at Medtrade. The first one was AI, and the second one is the regulatory updates, regulatory changes, specifically competitive bidding and the PTAN freeze that went into place a couple of weeks before Medtrade started. So honestly, there's another really big topic everyone was talking about, and it's the fact that you are now a member of the Prochant team.
Yes.
I guess you got a lot of questions about that too.
I did get a lot of questions about that. There was quite the buzz. As you know, they were interested in what happened and why, and I couldn't explain it more than I'm joining a great team and happy to be with Prochant. And I can't keep saying this over and over, but I really mean it. Like, I can't stop smiling from ear to ear. That a lot of times I'm like, my cheeks are hurting from smiling so much because I love what I'm doing. I love the team I'm working with. And I've been so impressed by what Prochant has to offer. I knew that before coming on board, and it's been just so impressive.
Well, we're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
I would say the same thing. I think if there's one thing that literally everybody asked me, it was, wow, Ronda joined your team?
Yes.
So, I feel the same way. So we're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Just dispel any rumors. There's no bad blood.
There isn't.
This is just the changing industry,
That's right?
And so I think it's really exciting, and I think it's a great opportunity for both of us.
Absolutely. And like you said, it was all good terms. There was people trying to get me to spill the tea of nothing. It was time. I loved everything I did with BGM and what I did for the members at BGM. It was a great company to work for, and it was just time to change and go with another great company. So here I am. And I always say it starts with leadership, and that starts with you, Joey, setting that tone and setting the culture for our company, which I've been so impressed with. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that too. It means a lot coming from you. It really does. So I think that was actually the biggest topic. So I wanted to get that out there. And so let's talk about the other two big things I said. So AI and the regulatory stuff. Let's start with AI, because this was definitely like the AI Medtrade. I think last year it was also very heavily AI, but last year everybody was still kind of dabbling. It was all very new. They were really learning. There's a lot of vendors now on the floor that are, have AI products. And so there was last year as well, but there were even more this year. But I think what was different is this year is now we've gone a whole year cycle, and a lot of companies tested the stuff out. And so this was a very different tone this year. I think that the attendees were definitely a lot more realistic about what AI can do and can't do. And they've had their own successes and failures, right? I would say for every person that told me an AI success story, I heard another person tell me where they didn't get what they needed out of it. They kind of went in with expectations at one level, and then what they got is maybe a little less. And I would say that's not unexpected. It's brand new technology, right? And so it's like we have to liken this to like back when the internet came out.
Right.
And I mean, like, I remember nobody had internet. Like, maybe at school you had internet, but nobody had internet. And then all of a sudden we could get internet at home. And I think it was a little disappointing for some people right out of the gate. Like, I remember like AOL, you would get the disc and you'd put it in and you'd like hook up your modem for the first time. And it would take 10 minutes to download a single photo, or, it was just like, okay, this is nice. And then chat rooms, they were okay, but they didn't change my life or anything. But what it was is like the internet was a new building block that I think we would all now look back and go, I mean, that makes sense. Those were the early days of something brand new that is going to shift. That's going to change everything, just like the internet did. And that's where we're at now. So AI is a new building block. It's not the end. It's not the destination. It's a tool to get to the destination. And so we're all now sort of learning the reality of implementing these AI tools and training these AI models and dealing with hallucinations and dealing with the fact that things aren't really connected right now. It's an interesting time, right? What were you hearing from people about AI?
As you hit it, AI, automation, technology, all of that was the buzz at the conference, and not just on the exhibit hall floor, but the sessions. Or, how can we integrate technology to help with our workflows? Like you said, the AI, people were hesitant, or suppliers were hesitant in the past, and now they've tried it and they're like, wow, now I want more of that. What else can I get a system to automate or integrate with my workflow and then use my people for the more complex issues?
Yeah. And we want value out of it. That's the struggle, right? That's the key. I think it has two big faces, right? I think there used to be, you could have speed or you could have accuracy, but you couldn't have both. And AI as a tool has sort of opened up the possibility for speed plus accuracy at a level we've never seen before. But now integrating that into our workflows, or better said, adjusting our workflows to account for it, is actually the key. I think what we've seen is some people took an existing process and then they automated it with AI. And in that sort of workflow, when you don't change the overall workflow, but you implement the new tool, you really lose out on some of the benefits of the new tool. There were also people, though, who went through full-scale implementations and totally changed the way that they work. I think those were the people that saw more benefit. Again, it's a tool and it sits on top of a workflow. And so if you automate a broken workflow, then you just have a faster broken workflow. You're not really moving the needle, really doing both things, bringing in the right partner, but then doing the process work to actually change and innovate that process and then automate it. That's where the key is. And I think that's where most of us are today, is having had that realization, having had a couple wins, a couple not so great wins, and now we're saying, okay, so what's next? Almost every AI solution I saw, if not every AI solution I saw, is aimed at intake.
Yes.
Did you see the same thing?
I did see the same thing. And I was going to even ask you, like, what did you think was the biggest buzz out of all the tools? And you answered the question before I even asked you, but intake, it's a difficult task.
I think when you think of the different use cases of AI in intake, there's the whole fax wrangling piece, just taking in all the documents from all the different sources and figuring out what kind of document is what, and then extracting data from those documents so that you can sort of automate the data entry, putting the patient name, the date of birth, the address, the insurance, and running the eligibility is another thing that a lot of these tools are doing. But I would say the most buzzy thing that I heard is qualification. I would say the same thing, right?
Yes. It's the hardest thing, I feel like, to get accomplished, because we have all those documents that we need to read.
Yeah.
But now you have tools, you have AIs that can read that medical necessity. Hands down, if I were a supplier, that's probably where I'd want to start, is can I remove some of the human element and error? And that's looking at medical necessity, because we tend to overanalyze.
Yeah, I mean, automated intake, automated data entry, electronic eligibility checks with the click of a button. We've had that for a while now. The thing that we haven't had is help in reviewing the 100 pages of medical records that sometimes we get, trying to dig through that haystack and find the needle of, here's the qualifying medical record and here's the test result. And these things are now marked and clearly identified and available in the case that there's an audit, or if I need to send this information in for a prior authorization. I think that that's really where I feel the most buzz and I feel the most excitement, because I think we all would agree. Like, the tough thing here is we're asking people to be experts in all payers and all products, and it's just not a reasonable ask.
It's impossible.
So to expect somebody to go review the medical policy, review the contract, read the LCD and the related policy articles,
knowing the different payers guidelines, right?
Yeah. Read the SOPs, which could be 100 pages themselves, and then bring all that knowledge together and evaluate a physician's medical record and suggest what they did or didn't do properly. a big ask.
That's huge.
Isn't it?
It's huge. And we've seen suppliers struggle with that because a lot of times you have non-clinicians reviewing that information that may not understand it. That's where the overanalyzing can also come into play. So when you can have a platform review all of that, pull out key pieces that you need in minutes versus hours, why not? Why wouldn't you not want to use that, right?
Right. I love that it highlights it. It links to it so you can go easily find it. That's the stuff I know that we're really excited about too at Prochant, just to enable our people with these tools so they can make better decisions and they can be more successful at qualifying patients. So I think what's coming, prior authorizations is probably going to be the next frontier that we see these providers go in and tackle, these AI providers, I mean. So right now, prior authorization work is primarily done manually. By people. Right. It's really tough. And there are a couple AI solutions out there, but I don't think any of them are targeted at DME at the moment. So I would say, though, that prior auth is coming. I would be very surprised if most of those AI vendors aren't actively working on prior auth right now. And then when you get into the mid office and the back office, or what we call billing and collections, you don't see a lot of companies really pushing those tools. So that is something that we've been working on at Prochant. We've really put a lot of effort into, number one, partnering with the right company for intake, right? And we've done that, but then working ourselves on tackling some of the mid and back office challenges, leveraging AI, using tools to scrub claims before they go out the door and identify issues. So identify denials that are, going to be really tough to overturn, or on the other hand, identifying denials that should be a home run where we can drive some cash, generating work aids for our agents so that they make the right decision when they're working a claim, leveraging AI. So that's just a couple examples of some of the tools that we've been working on. But we also think that there's a big opportunity there as well. And one last thought on AI. I think it's a lot, right? I think especially one of the things I've noticed is that people are at different levels of maturity of understanding, number one, like what's possible, or even what is AI and where could it plug in? What are the possible use cases? But then also just providers have patients to service. They have referrals to take care of. They have payers that they have to deal with. And there's a lot going on. You have a lot on your plates, providers. And so to then go run multiple proofs of concept with different AI vendors and figure out which one is the best, and then overhaul your process and plug in the AI tool and string them together, because it's multiple solutions. There's nobody that has an end-to-end AI solution for a DME. So I've got somebody who's great at phone calls. I've got somebody who's great at intake automation. I've got somebody who's great at whatever, fill in the blank. But I don't have a holistic solution. And maybe those are coming as well. But we also see companies like Prochant, revenue cycle companies. That's really our opportunity, is to simplify that for you. So bring those solutions together, let us deploy AI for you, right? So I think that's where we're headed as a company. AI was far and away the number one topic at Medtrade. At least 70% of what everybody was talking about, if not more.
Agree, totally. Whether it was on the exhibit hall floor or the show or during the sessions, that's what people were seeking information on, is where they can fit in that automation in their business.
Yeah. So let's move on then to our second topic, which is the regulatory changes. If there was a number two topic, then this was it by far, right? I said 70% of the topic was AI, at least 25% of the remaining topic was regulatory changes. And again, I think there's two big ones that our providers are facing right now. So the resurrection of competitive bidding, even in a limited form, not only the next round of bidding, but also just the concept that now bidding is back. We all know that last time they did multiple rounds of bidding. They did it in different phases. At one time, they bid out all the diabetic supplies as a separate bidding round. And then the next round came in and it was all the main product categories. So I don't think it's just the fact that now they've done bidding for urologicals and a few others, but in CGMs is the other big one, right? But also just the fact that this is now back on CMS's radar. They're kind of getting the band back together when it comes to the competitive bidding program. So what were you hearing, Rhonda, with competitive bidding?
Competitive bidding is on everybody's radar, that especially with the supplies that they would be offering, like you had mentioned, urologicals, CGMs, what is back and knee bracing or back in. So what they really did was look at some of the products that had high volume of a fraud tied to it. Unfortunately, the DME industry is labeled as a fraudulent industry. That's how certain people look at it in the at CMS or in DC. So competitive bid is back, and there's still a lot of details that we're trying to get information on that CMS hasn't released completely. But we do know that the next round will probably be implemented around 2028. So we should look at getting more details this year as far as how that bidding process will go. It looks like it'll still be lead item pricing. We don't know what the lead item products are yet, the codes. It would be similar concept to the last round where we did lead item. You had that one HCPCS code that basically set the tone for the rest of the codes in that product category. So that was the biggest buzz, is people wanted information on where this next round is going to take me. Is it something I want to look at doing? Because it will be national. Looking at national, the RID program, remote item delivery. So CMS tends to look at our trends, our habits, and they monitor all that data and mine through it. And those are items not only were in the fraudulent area, but also that we did a lot of drop shipping on. So they're like, why not limit the scope of suppliers and also reduce the price? Because we know they're not going to increase the price. They're looking for savings and implement this next round. There'll be more to come, as you know, on the competitive bidding, but that was a hot topic.
Are these products that have ever been bid before?
The only ones out of those that have been in the previous rounds was off-the-shelf knee and back bracing.
Okay.
The other ones, there was some upper arm extremity in there for the prosthetics. And then what else was there? Like I said, catheters, ostomy, CGMs. I know I'm missing a couple, but they have not been in the previous rounds. So
they really do think there's opportunity to save here, right? Because the other product categories have already been bid down.
Yes.
In fact, to the point that I think the last time they did a bid program, they rescinded the whole program. They didn't save any money.
They didn't save any money because we figured out as an industry how to, and this was in the language in the Federal Register where we figured out how to, I want to say properly bid, but bid properly so we wouldn't lose on the non-lead items. And they did, so there was no saving. So all that happened in the last round was off-the-shelf knee and back bracing. Okay. That was it.
So they must feel like they didn't quite get to the bottom there yet.
Bottom there, right.
They're going to bid another round of that. But now they're going to get a first round of bidding on the true new products where they probably will get pretty substantial savings.
Yeah, they will. And limit the number of suppliers. They haven't said exactly how many suppliers in each product category, but there will be fewer suppliers is what they're looking at to fill what that competitive bid looks like for the future. So we could see if they don't see any savings, could they rescind it? Certainly they could. Right? They did it before.
But what are the chances of that?
Let's not bet on it.
It's a national bid. Because only a handful of companies are going to get each bid. Right. So there's going to be some massive players are going to emerge, or we're going to see the large nationals get these bids probably because like with diabetic, what were there, like 7 companies or something that got the remote item exclusive contract?
Right. Yeah, there were. It was, when it was, the diabetes.
Yeah, when they did strips.
It was national. It was just a small amount. And then and I think some of the companies that didn't get that were thankful because the margins were so small that it wasn't worth it.
Everybody went, what?
Yeah, we're not doing that.
It was below cost. For most companies. So I think unless you were just a massive player with massive buying power, it was unfortunate.
It was unfortunate, especially for a disease state like diabetes, right? So so competitive bid it's not going away. It is here. So make sure you stay tuned as CMS releases more information and participate in those educational sessions that do happen.
Yeah, that's big. So then the second thing under regulatory is the PTAN freeze. That's what I'm calling it. But I mean, it's pretty big news, right?
It is. I don't think it's ever happened on the DME side. I think it happened maybe home health in the past, but CMS is calling a moratorium. So they're putting a freeze on any new PTAN. So if you're going after a new PTAN for maybe you did an acquisition and you need a new PTAN for that branch, that's a new PTAN. They're not going to allow that for at least 6 months. So the effective date they did decide on was this went into effect February 27, and it goes for 6 months. They say that at a minimum. So that could change and get extended. The reason behind this, that CMS and the White House thinks this will help reduce fraud, which I don't know how that will help reduce fraud because fraudsters will always find a way to get in the game, but that's what they're thinking is to reduce fraud. That's their theme, crush fraud. So yeah, it was a big topic because it's going to affect the acquisitions. New suppliers coming into the business, they will not be able to get a P during this moratorium. It's big news, especially I feel like it affects the acquisitions more so than.
Right. That's a big one because with acquisitions, if the company has changed hands in the last 3 years, is that what it is?
Last 3 years.
Then basically it can't change hands again.
Right.
If it's been in the last 3 years. Because in that scenario, you have to apply for a brand new PTAN. However, if the company being acquired is more than 3 years old, then they can actually keep the
PTAN, right?
As long as it's a stock sale. That's another thing, right?
It's got a stock sale.
So asset sale. So that's a lot of the acquisitions in our space are asset sales. So those are pretty big. So M&A has a major impact. However, for the established providers who have been around for a while, as long as they sell the stock, then they'll be able to complete an M&A transaction. Then you have the whole, new provider. So the whole startup has just been put on freeze, right? We're going to see startups for a while.
That's right.
Until this is done. The third one, I think, is also a really big impact is opening new branches, right? Because when you open a new branch, you have to get a PTAN for that branch.
Yeah.
That's a new PTAN. That's the thing that's frozen. So that to me is probably the biggest issue is now a lot of providers are in growth mode. They're opening new branches, they're expanding their geographies, and that has now just been placed on freeze, and you can't do it unless you go acquire an established company in your new market. That's your only way to get the new branch PTAN going.
Another issue that'll go along with this, Joey, if you are not, we know that PTANs are mainly used for Medicare claims, right? Sometimes you need a PTAN or a lot of times you do need it for Medicaid. And we're getting clarification on this because I do sit in part of the enrollment council, what we call National Provider Enrollment Advisory Council. And we've asked the enrollment contractors to get clarification from CMS on if you need the PTAN just because you're billing Medicaids and it's a new initial PTAN, you're not able to get that PTAN. They're not going to allow you. It's any new initials. So we've asked for them to clarify that with CMS, and we're waiting for that response yet. Yeah. But if you're just going to bill a Medicaid, why can that not be an exception? But that could affect a lot of suppliers that deal with pediatrics, right?
Yeah.
That's another huge one that I know I've already heard rumblings from suppliers about. I'm just billing Medicaid. That's my business, and I can't get a PTAN. I'm not billing Medicare. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of unprecedented. I read, and I haven't verified this, but I read in the NHIA newsletter that they did a PTAN freeze in the home health industry a few years ago, and it lasted 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
And they did 6-month extensions 10 times, basically, right? And so I hope that's not what happens here, but I do question whether it's really just going to be 6 months.
In that language, they said they can end it early, but they can also extend it. And I don't think they'll end it early. They're all after crushing fraud. So I feel like there'll be extensions. So let's always plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? So don't be surprised if that'll be around end of August when we should hear more. So
I had one question for you. I know one of the business models in DME is the hub and spoke model, right? Where you have a central hub and then you have basically just warehouses that are spokes. And in that model, the billing and the PTAN originates from the hub. Do you think that with this freeze, do you think that an opportunity is to sort of adopt that sort of model? And if you're looking to expand geography, just open up spokes. I would think as long as it's not over state lines, because I think if you can do a new state, you need a new PTAN, but I don't know that either, honestly. But do you think there's an opportunity to, if a provider is looking to expand, and could they designate a branch as a hub and then have sort of like warehouse spokes that report into that hub?
They could. So a warehouse, if it's just strictly a warehouse, you don't have to have a PTAN for it. So warehouse meaning patients are not coming into the facility. So
no posted hours.
No posted hours. If you are servicing patients at a location, that needs a PTAN. If it's strictly a warehouse where you're just shipping out of it and the billing is happening at that main location, the hub, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. That could be the model that we go to, right? Suppliers need to think about. Something else to think about with this moratorium is this is a federal precedence, right, that they set. It can also occur at state level. An individual state, like for me, I live in Arizona, and I'm proud to say that, they could adopt and say, well, we're going to put a moratorium at a state level for maybe Medicaid numbers, right? So it could happen. So don't be surprised if you see it trickle down into a state.
That's good. Well, I think just to kind of wrap things up here, this has been a great first episode for us. I would say another couple things that came to mind as I think about Medtrade debrief is I would call this year the year of the party.
There were so many.
I have never seen so many parties at Medtrade. I think there were at least 4 or 5 parties every single night. And that was a lot. I think a lot of times in the past, Medtrade has been about going out to dinner after the show and have a big, long corporate dinner. I think there was a lot less of that this year, but there was also a lot of just division and which party you going to. It was a lot, but it was really cool. So I would say that the after hours was hopping this year.
Yes,
for sure.
I agree. It was hopping, and Medtrade happened so quickly because it was jam packed with great sessions, going to the exhibit hall, and then you had your evening events, like so many options to choose from. So it was certainly happening for sure.
We decided to just divide and conquer our team, hit as many parties as we could. And it was a lot of fun. It was a good time for sure. So maybe there's an opportunity for companies to pair up and sort of throw mutual parties too. One thing I would love, honestly, is anybody who stayed the last day, Wednesday. Wednesday is always just so quiet.
Yeah.
The last day of Medtrade. And it generally, like, classes go until 1 p.m. and then the expo's open till 3. But the reality is everybody leaves on the last day. What I would love to see, and I'm just going to throw this out there into the universe, I would love to see a massive party at the very end of Medtrade.
Oh.
Reason to stay. Everybody stay. We're going to get together one last time, and then everybody can disperse the following day. I would love to see somebody do that.
Yeah.
Again, throw that out to the universe.
Throw that out. I love that idea. Get everybody to have a wrap up party and celebrate. I love that idea.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is the announcement that Medtrade 2027 is going to be held in Fort Worth, Texas. I think it's the first time that's ever happened.
I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I think cowboy theme Medtrade. So get your cowboy boots, get your 10-gallon hat, get yourself a nice belt buckle. I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty fun show.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I loved having everybody in Phoenix because it was easy for me, but it will be great to see it in Fort Worth.
But again, thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm really excited to be having this podcast. I'd love to hear your feedback. So please subscribe, and let's get together, talk rev cycle. Keep it going. So,
I love it. Yeah, it was
thanks
great.
Thanks for joining me, Rhonda.
Yeah, thanks. I love being a co-host with you. It was a lot of fun. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening to the Proof of Delivery podcast. Until next time, I'm Joey Graham. This is my co-host, Ronda Buhrmester. We can't wait to see you again.
At Prochant, we're obsessed with revenue capture. Revenue cycle management isn't just a back office process. It's the engine that keeps your business moving. That's why we partner with you to keep things running smoothly and securely, from intake to collections, so you can prioritize cash, not the chaos. We specialize in home-based care, combining US-led teams, AI-powered workflows, and transparent dashboards to drive guaranteed results. We leverage over 25 years of experience to optimize your RCM with proven best practices tailored to fit your specific needs. Our expert RCM pros are backed by powerful tech, giving you better efficiency, better revenue capture, and more time to focus on what really matters, your patients. Because when your financial engine's firing on all cylinders, everything else moves forward. Prochant. Contact us now to talk to an expert.